I have a small introduction, but like I said, talking about people that don't really need an introduction, I think our next speaker is quite fitting. Um, Rahul Goel. By now, you probably have seen their logo, whether because they sponsor your team, you've interned there, or you've attended Canada's first space launch conference in Ottawa this year. And here, of course, we're talking about NordSpace, specifically the founder and CEO, Rahul Goel. Rahul is a proud Canadian entrepreneur and aerospace engineer with a passion for economic development and helping engineers commercialize their research. Proof is he founded NordSpace. He's a founder and chief executive of the company, a Canadian company developing an end-to-end orbital launch system. Rahul earned his bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering from the University of Toronto's Engineering Science program, where he founded, once again, he sounds like he likes to found a lot of things, the Robotics for Space Exploration team, and is currently pursuing a PhD in space robotics at the University of Toronto Institute for Aerospace Studies. Talking about founding teams, he is CEO of Feedloop, NordSpace, Genepica, and Events 101 while doing his PhD part-time. Part-time or full-time? I don't think it would be feasible full-time, but I would not be surprised. On his free time, he also serves on the board of Launch Canada and actively mentors student engineering teams. So everyone, please welcome not only a friend, but a big part of our community, Rahul Goel.
Thank you for the introduction, Cyril. Really appreciate it. Always a privilege to be here. I'm sad this year we couldn't have more of our team. They're just working literally around the clock for the last several weeks preparing for our launch. We're headed out in 2 days and our launch window opens on the 25th. So I'll tell you a little bit about our launch and everything, but I want to start by just saying I still have goosebumps from that Concordia launch. I thought that was just one of the most amazing things that's happened in recent memory in space in Canada. That was so awesome. One of the reasons, in fact, I started NordSpace a couple of years ago was when I heard Oleg, the director of the Star Sailor program. I was just like walking down the frozen aisle section of like Superstore, and I heard a podcast with him. And if you've met him and you know him, he's like so enthusiastic, and he spoke so enthusiastically about the work that they're doing. And I've always had this dream to start a company in space in Canada, and that was kind of one of the moments, one of maybe 2 or 3 moments where I'm like, all right, I think I got to do this. This is the right time. And then one thing leads to another. So it's amazing what students do. They inspire people older than students. I was a student not too long ago, but not anymore. I guess I am actually part-time. But real thanks to Concordia and congratulations to them. So if we can get the slides, I can get started. I figured what I'd do is last year I talked a little bit about kind of building a launch company in Canada, and I talked about some of the lessons that I've learned. And what I'm thinking is if I have the honor to do this again every year, maybe I'll just give you an update on some of the things that I've learned, some of the big mistakes we've made, so that when you all start your own launch companies as well in Canada, you don't have to do the same things make the same mistakes that we did. But I'll give you a couple updates on NordSpace, and then I'll tell you about some of the lessons, and hopefully it's helpful. So, oops, back one. There we go. This is the only like doom and gloom, just the first. We're pretty far behind as Canadians. We just are. There's countries all over the world, and this is kind of, we all know this, right? We know you all graduate, you end up going to other places in the world to work on rockets. That's great. We really need to keep everyone here at home. And we're just so far behind. We're one of the only G7 nations really that doesn't have this capability, behind almost 20 others by our latest count. This is honestly unacceptable. And I'll tell you about how I sort of perceive this by the end of this presentation, because in my experience, it's you students who've been shouldering the burden of really bringing Canadian launch, folks like Adam, Launch Canada and everything. And I don't think it's fair. I think this is something that companies should be doing in our government. And you all benefit from the ecosystem that's created. You can work here and all of that. So I'm pretty upset about this, and we're going to change it for sure. I talked about this last year. I always do. I think we're facing an Avro era moment. Another big moment for me in my life was when I saw that full-scale model of the Avro Aero that's now at the Edenvale Aerodrome. And I couldn't believe that something like that existed, and then I couldn't believe that it didn't exist. And that really like broke my heart when I was a kid. And I committed myself kind of emotionally at that point that I wanted to be a part of aerospace and spaceflight. So I'm going to jump into some NordSpace updates and tell you a little bit about this. It's really an honor to be following Reaction Dynamics. They've really set a strong precedent for launch in Canada, and we've learned a lot from them. But we are fundamentally a very different company. We describe NordSpace as an end-to-end space missions company. That's very specifically why we've taken on this immense challenge of not just building rockets, but building everything that's under them and everything that goes on top of them as well. In our definition, in personally, sovereign launch for Canada means launching Canadian rockets from Canadian soil with Canadian payloads on top of them. And there is no way that if we miss even one of those things, it's not a true sovereign launch capability. And we remained unconvinced that that capability exists in Canada on the other two sides, so we could just focus on rockets. And we had to make sure that we actually develop a sovereign capability. So we took on the challenge to do all three, and it's been pretty hard. I'll tell you a little bit about it, but we've made great progress. So we're doing launch, we're building our own spaceport, we're building our own satellites, and we're also layering on all kinds of defense applications as well. We have 3 launch vehicles that are in our roadmap. We have Taiga, which is launching in 9 days, 10 days. And this is like a really, it's going to be so much fun to see this thing finally fly. It's been 6 months in the making, and we've just moved as fast as we possibly could to get this flight up and running. I'll tell you a little bit about our engine development and everything else. Tundra is going to be our first orbital vehicle that will run for a couple of years as we ladder up to Titan, which would be 5 tons to low Earth orbit. And we're really investing in heavier lift. So it's minimum 500 kilograms, which is why we're doing Tundra. But really, we don't even think that's enough, and given the direction that the market is going, larger capabilities, constellations, and all of that. So we need to get, as Canadians, in the early 2030s to a medium lift launch vehicle, and there's just no way around that. So I'll tell you a little bit about Tundra. It's still a really exciting vehicle. It's powered in the first stage by 7 of our Hadfield engines. We're lucky to be endorsed by Chris Hadfield on this. I don't think he was incredibly happy when he first heard about it, but we really, I think we won him over. Our second stage is powered by one of our Garneau engines, very similar to the Hadfield, but vacuum optimized. Very fortunate that we were able to actually show Marc Garneau before his passing footage of his own engine development and hot firing as well. So the rocket itself, about 26 meters tall, 1.5 meters in diameter, and able to carry 500 kilograms to LEO, 300 to SSO. And I think this is one of the most important things. We do a lot of market research, and it's not enough. You know, a lot of companies around the world, they talk about X kilograms to LEO. You really have to be specific. How many kilograms are you taking to what inclination, to what orbit, to what altitude? And SSO is where the money is. So that's kind of like a minimum for us in order to get there. And we think we can eke out through like incredibly inefficient TLI's a lunar orbit as well. So, you know, that's kind of just my fantasy. So the Hadfield engine, so NordSpace, we're going to turn 3 years old in October. We've come a really long way. We're going to be, by the end of this year, about 23 or so people on our team. We do almost all our own manufacturing. We've invested heavily in test facilities and everything else. But our Hadfield engine, completely designed from scratch, also 3D printed, truly a marvel of modern rocket science and development. And it's designed to scale. One of the things and the reasons we chose liquids is like, despite them being challenging, as Zach talked about, once you crack them, they can scale pretty effectively. And it really comes down to like larger tanks at the end of the day. But here's a little video showing what an engine looks like when it's coming out of the printer. We did pretty it up a little bit. But so this is all in our facility, made in Canada, 100% from the design to the manufacturing. It takes us about 60 hours to produce a single one of these engines, 30 hours to post-process it, and it hits our test cell. We're able to do anywhere between 5 to 10 hot fires in a single day and run this thing constantly. Obviously regeneratively cooled and all of that as well. So it's mesmerizing to see these things being produced right behind, in our shop. Okay, just get the next slide. I'm having a little trouble here. Oh, there we go. Quick stats on the Hadfield engine, 35 kilonewtons of thrust. This is kind of where we're at right now. We may be actually a little bit over that, go a little bit over that. All the interesting numbers. If you're curious, you can chat with me a little bit more about it, or even ping our engineers. We're super transparent. We love talking about what we do. So here's a video of what it looks like at our engine test facility, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. But this is what some of our hot fires look like. So we went through hell and back really trying to set up an engine test facility. We overstayed our welcome testing engines at Markham, and we moved super fast. So we had to find a way to continue our testing. We ended up acquiring a large 50-acre property that used to be a aggregate mine, and set ourselves up there within a matter of weeks. Completely built this new test cell. This is able to not just test our suborbital rocket engines, but also scale up to our orbital engines, but specifically to mate our turbopump systems that are in development right now. But anyway, we test our engines here. One of our big limitations that we're still trying to solve is just being able to have enough propellant for longer and longer duration burns, several minutes at a time. That's just a perennial challenge, and we're working on things like on-site generation of liquid oxygen and all kinds of other solutions as well. That'll all actually scale up and support our spaceport also. So talking about the spaceport, we're working on our own launch site. Initially, this is really something that we didn't want to do, but it became apparent to us how important it is to do this in order to maintain the pace that we believe we need to maintain, not as a company, but as a country as well. So we call it the Atlantic Spaceport Complex. It's on the southeast shore of Newfoundland and Labrador. Excitingly and very proudly, with endless months of around-the-clock work, flying back and forth between Newfoundland, meeting politicians and everything, we were able to really push through and blast through walls, get the necessary approvals to actually start construction a couple of weeks ago. So there's two aspects to the Atlantic Spaceport Complex, Slick 1 and Slick 2. I'll tell you a little bit about that, but here's a quick video. So that's the area for Slick 2. This is where we're going to have mostly ground support equipment like radar tracking for range, SATCOM, and also a smaller launch pad. That's what we're going to be launching from in the next couple of days. But it'll also be able to support, larger rockets, but not orbital rockets. So we are working pretty aggressively right now on a pretty exciting partnership with an American company that's going to be looking to launch from here. All of this is being used to test what our development is going to look like in the next couple of months at Slick 1. We're going to be building a much longer road there, and we're going to be building pads and all kinds of structures and propellant systems and lots of stuff. But obviously, gorgeous location. I think we're going to give Rocket Lab a run for their money. I think we might have the most beautiful launch site in the world. Let's make that happen. But it's a gorgeous place, and I really wish and hope some of you all can make it out there sometime. In terms of what we're doing there, like I said, Slick 1, orbital launch pad. We're going to have two pads there, one for us, one for partners. And at Slick 2, we're going to have all kinds of capabilities for communication, radar, mission control type stuff as well. On our timeline, we're tracking pretty well, but it is super aggressive. 2024 was identifying the location, 2025, getting all the initial approvals we require, and getting to start for construction going. 2026, making all those approvals permanent, and also continuing on with our construction. 2027, operational readiness for a launch, all the way up to 29, where we're fully functional. Yeah, there isn't a lot of time to breathe, definitely, but we're making it happen. Finally, with the location itself, so if you're looking at it on a map, great location, 46-degree latitude. One of the things even Canadians often think, they're like, oh, can you launch from Canada? Like, isn't it too far north? We're the same latitude as Seattle. The Russians launched from exactly the same latitude since the beginning of the space age. And we're launching clear over the Atlantic Ocean. So 45, 46 to 100 degrees launch inclinations. There's nothing in between us and the Atlantic Ocean. It's actually really ideal, especially compared to some of the European launch sites. I think they really drew the short straw. But this is something that we're very encouraged by. I'll tell you a little bit about our satellite program and why this is just so important. For us, it's not just about building launch, but actually building the infrastructure so that at least 50% of our launch demand can come from NordSpace internally. This is why we think companies like SpaceX or Rocket Lab are so successful, especially SpaceX. They're able to dog food their own capability. I mean, if you think about it, almost 70% of SpaceX launches are Starlink. So are they a rocket company or are they a satellite communications company? Hard to tell. And same with Rocket Lab, with Neutron, they're really investing heavily on their own buses and being able to launch their own capabilities on their own rockets. So anyway, we're working on our own satellite bus, we're working on in-space propulsion, and we're working on AI capabilities on the edge. That's all culminating with our first satellite that's launching next June. So we haven't made this public yet, but we just signed a contract to launch with Transporter 17, hopefully the first and last time on a non-Canadian rocket. Doesn't matter whose, just let's make sure it's Canadian. It's going to feature our main satellite bus that's able to scale up to about 16U and larger if we need to. It's going to have our electric propulsion thruster and our Chronos camera that's primarily, coincidentally, going to be working on wildfire prediction and management. So good timing on that part as well. So launch milestones, we have ours coming up in the next couple of days. That launch is going to just under, about 10 kilometers. And then we may or may not do another launch between then and orbital. It sort of really depends on our mission objectives. But I'll talk a little bit about mission objectives. This is one of the things that really kind of became apparent to me over the last year since I talked to you all last time, just how important mission objectives are. We have this thing, the Canadian Space Research Range is what we call the area that we're testing our engines, the one that you saw in that video. So like I said, it's a 50-acre property, and our intent behind that is to actually add more capabilities there so students can use it, but also other researchers. We have 2 propulsion test cells there right now, and we're going to be building another one over the next couple of months. But we wanted to be able to support robotics, astronomy, all kinds of other things as well. We're doing what we can to build infrastructure in the community. I think one of our biggest challenges in Canada is the fact that unlike the United States, we just don't have public infrastructure. We don't have launch sites, we don't have test facilities, and like a whole host of other things. And I don't think it should be on a private company necessarily to build that stuff, but somebody has to do it. So we're doing what we can with what we have. So our timeline, like how did we get here? We're almost about to turn 3. Like what's been the story so far? The story of NordSpace is still largely intertwined with my own, but hopefully over time less and less so. I like to include this because, like you all, I've been in student design teams my whole life, starting in grade 5 at the bottom right with Lego Robotics. I don't like sharing that photo. I look pretty pudgy, although I'm not looking too different now. But worked on satellites, worked on rovers, worked on rockets, drones, you name it. So students are like, this is my world. And it not only is an honor for me to be here, but I absolutely believe students are our future, uniquely so in Canada. There's something in the water or the air that makes us so passionate, and we just punch way above our weight everywhere where we go. I won't go through every detail, but born in '92, so I'm 33 years old, and like I took a pretty zigzag path to get here. I wanted to start NordSpace back when I graduated in 2016 from undergrad. Very hard to raise a couple $1 million as a kid, kind of out of undergrad. Maybe it's easier these days. It wasn't for me. So I decided to take a detour and start other companies and try to make them successful so that by the time I turned 30, which was almost 3 years ago, I can take the first step and invest all my own capital into this company and de-risk it for the Canadian ecosystem, for the Canadian government from a technical and financial perspective, so that it's not a pipe dream, but it's like, look, we have something on the pad, we can scale this up, we can make it work, let's work together. So, 2022, between Oleg and a bunch of other things, started NordSpace, also met my wife, a lot of changes in my life, very positive ones, but certainly some challenges before that. So it started on my porch basically in 2023. So it was me and our chief propulsion engineer, Lakshmanan. We didn't have really a facility exactly then, so we're just blowing stuff up on my porch. I still have stains, I can't get them out. But less than a year later, we set up a facility. We hired a bunch of people on our team. We did our own in-house manufacturing, fired our first engine. Less than a year later, we assembled our first vehicle, test fired that in a fully vertically integrated way back in January. All went great. and then started building our second vehicle. April 2024, rewinding up, last year is when we identified our launch site for the ASX. May 2025, so just a couple months ago, we completed our month-long campaign with our new Dark Horse engine test cell, the video that you saw, and qualified our engine for flight. And a bunch of other things along the way. So we have mostly our team, we have half our team working on this flight that's coming up, and the other half is working on things like space systems and orbital. So we've been working on things like orbital tank manufacturing, turbo pumps, and everything else. And I think one of the things I'm most excited about for this flight is being able to dedicate all the resources that we have right now on this mission and move them over to orbital, because we really need to get going on that ASAP. So yeah, July, we had our vehicle ready, launch rail and everything ready, launch rail and everything good to go. Just final checks. Again, our team hasn't really slept in weeks, just making sure that we get all of this going. They're really this couldn't happen without our team, and many of them are, of course, were in your shoes just a couple of years ago. So it's going to be pretty great. August, like I said, construction started. So lots of big milestones we've been crossing. Our first satellite's going to be ready for integration by January, and lots on the horizon. So like I mentioned, the reason we've been able to move pretty fast is private capital, and one of the reasons, of course, number one definitely is our team, but significant personal commitment, but also the commitment of everyone on our team as well, just tremendous personal sacrifice. But we're able to really make our own decisions, and I think that's what's allowed us to move really fast, and given me confidence as an investor in our own company that I can keep investing more. And we're really trying to do something hard here, which is trying to have the lowest program cost and not dilute our cap table at all before we perform our first orbital flight. We think that's going to really get our unit economics down so much to a point where when we're managing our own spaceport, managing our own bus, managing our own rocket, and managing our own cap table entirely, we can have a very compelling rocket program here in Canada. Launch is within reach for Canada as well from a finance perspective. One of the other misconceptions when we talk to people, again, you all know this, but outside people who know launch, it's going to cost Canada billions of dollars to build a launch vehicle. It's not. And there's no reason. You can spend billions of dollars, and people have, but also the most successful companies haven't. SpaceX did Falcon 1 for about 80 million almost 20 years ago. Rocket Lab 95, and these are brilliant companies. It's bold of us to even compare ourselves to companies like these, but I think we have the right ethos, and I think we have the benefit of modern technology, and I think we can do that for even cheaper. So anyway, we're working right now on our phase B through a lot of different means. Again, we're really trying to avoid private capital, but that's going to get us to our first orbital flight, and phase C will allow us to fully scale this thing up. So we're aiming to do this for about 100 million CAD. I wanted to mention, because I think it's just the coolest thing ever, and that we have two rocket companies here in Canada. I think one of the cooler things also is that the approaches are just so different. I think this is really important for Canadians broadly who are not necessarily building the rockets, but to know that one of these approaches has got to work. On one end, you have us doing end-to-end, doing all this other stuff to really make sure that we have the entire ecosystem around us to make launch successful. And then you have reaction dynamics, brilliant engineers like Zach, really focused on making launch happen. And I think that's just the difference is really great. Completely different propulsion methodologies and philosophies behind it as well. And also, we're really trying to aim for the larger payload class, which is obviously comes with a lot of challenges. And one of these has to work. And for Canadians' sake, as long as one of them works, I think it's great. But it's really awesome to have two bets. And it's an honor to be in this healthy race with reaction dynamics. So what I've learned so far, I think this is pretty important. It's kind of an opportunity for me to reflect as well a little bit. There's certainly some things over the last year that I've completely changed direction on, and I'll tell you a little bit about those, and some that have been really reinforced. And hopefully some of these are interesting to you. And this is really from the lens of a commercial company, not as students. I think one of the biggest challenges for us, even for me, was to unlearn the student mindset and move into a professional mindset where it's honestly business decisions that drive so much of what we do, and not the engineering challenge of it. One of the things I loved about being a student is we could just do things because they were hard. Um, that's not a luxury we necessarily have as a commercial company. I'll tell you a little bit about that. But number one, and this hasn't changed for me, is time is everything. It, you know, I have some benefit of being an entrepreneur before this in another context as well, and it's just dawned on me so many times that when somebody doesn't appreciate just the value of time, it becomes really hard, at least for me, to personally work with them. So a lot of people ask, like, what do you look for when you're hiring at NordSpace? And I put this photo up. I'm guessing most of you watch Interstellar. It's one of my favorite scenes because if you listen to like the soundtrack, they have this like metronome with the every tick, like every second. And for better or for worse, that's like inside me every second of my life. I can't stop this thing. I have this like metronome going, and it's like setting the pace for my life. It's usually like a great thing. Sometimes it drives me bananas, but that's what I look for personally when I'm hiring, among other things. And what I look for when we look at partners to work with us, whether they're partners on the ground or partners for people who are going to supply things for us on a rocket or launch with us, do they have that same sense of urgency? Do they have the same appreciation for time? And if they don't, we don't work with them. Like straight up, we don't work with them. But if they do, or if they're even close, and we know we can sort of sync up with them, then we do. So time is everything for us, and that guides so many of our decisions. You'll see some of that as I go on. The other thing I've really like cemented, I kind of had this inkling last year, but it became really apparent to me that building something small is just about as hard as building something big. So go big every single time. It's going to be a little painful in the beginning. There's like a bit of a mental barrier there. But at the end of the day, especially with rockets, things are so complex, space in general, that aim higher. There's the marginal difference is actually very minimal, at least so far in our experience, and I've heard this advice from many others as well. So that's why we're aiming for larger rockets and larger capabilities. That's why we're aiming for this end-to-end capability. And it's kind of really starting to settle in now. The whole like shock factor around that, like, can we actually do all of this, has gone away, and now it's very tactical, very operational. We're actually figuring out how to make all these pieces come together. But it's definitely scary to start. But if I can, I want to see the next Concorde. I want to see Canada be the ones to even attempt like the first student orbital flight. I think we can do this. Something I totally didn't appreciate last year that I do now is being honest about mission objectives. I kind of completely glossed over mission objectives. I knew about requirements and really understood them. I talk about like deleting requirements constantly and making things as simple as possible. But I think mission objectives really become your North Star for everything that you do in a company like this one. Because this is where I think unlearning the student mindset has been most apparent. Because when we started a rocket company, we're like, we want to build our suborbital. We want to build a rocket that like for example, a really good example is actually our flight that's coming up. We had this decision to make. Do we want this to be like a space shot, or do we want to just look what are we trying to achieve with this rocket, and what is the consequence for time? So one of the biggest things was how high do we want this thing to go, and what is the marginal gain with doing that? And it became apparent that it would take us an extra 6 months, roughly, maybe a year, to actually get to that point by adjusting a rocket to get there. But the value was so minimal. Within the first, call it 10 to 30 seconds of flight, we're able to actually learn everything that we needed to, that we wanted to. Again, there is marginal gain. So our mission objective was clear the launch rail, let this thing burn for about 10 seconds or whatever we need to, and move on to orbital. And that's exactly what we're doing, because as an orbital launch company, that's our priority. But if we were, in the mindset where we just wanted to do really amazing things because they're challenging, we might not have made that decision. So this doesn't apply necessarily to every company, but certainly does to us. This is something also that I've been really reflecting over. I think it's very important for a company, especially one like ours or launch companies in general, to really understand their why. Whether you like SpaceX or not, and my feelings about SpaceX have changed a little bit over time, I think they've been pretty consistent. Civilization on Mars, all that stuff. Great. I think that's cool. That sort of like drives you forward as a company. I don't think for a launch company it's enough to just be like, we want to build rockets because it's like important, and even like the sovereignty aspect is like it's pretty big, but it's still not enough. And currently for us, it's about we have this vision that every country around the world, at least friendly country, we want to make them a spacefaring nation. And we want to be able to develop the formula end to end here in Canada by making Canada a true spacefaring nation first, and then copy and paste that capability all around the world so that every nation on Earth has the ability to reach space on their own and build their own space programs. So that's what we're really focused on over the next decade, and that's what's driving a lot of our why. But I think if you're going to start a rocket company, it's really important to have a why beyond just we want to build rockets because they're awesome. And they are. Little controversial, but I've always maintained that I think Canada has a serious innovation problem. We really over-index on innovation. I don't want this to sound like I'm discouraging innovation. I think actually the best place for innovation is where you guys are right now as students. The consequence isn't nearly as high, and why are you doing this? At least why I was doing it as a student was to learn as much as I possibly can, get as many hands-on skills as possible. And I think the innovation should come from universities, should come from students. But when it comes to building a capability, which is what we need here in Canada, not a technology, we need to depart a little bit from trying to find innovative differentiators with every single thing we do and just build something that works. We need to build, the Ford pickup truck that gets us to orbit and that buys us the luxury to then start investing in other innovative projects. So let the business case guide you. I know that doesn't sound cool. I know we want the engineering side quest to be the be all and end all, and that's the fun stuff. We're all engineers here. But at the end of the day, if you're building an honest business, you have to let the business case guide you and focus on first principles. The last couple of things, I really find that we've tended to overestimate what we can do in a day and really underestimate what we can do in a month or a year. And this is something that we're just constantly, especially me, trying to calibrate and force myself out of. And this is especially true, I think, for very complex projects. So by constantly talking about this as a team and talking about it with your peers, it really helps you kind of reframe things and make sure that you're actually trying to be realistic about what you can do in a single day, but not underestimating actually what you can do in the longer term. So this is one thing, again, from the student side, I had to unlearn, and it was a pretty painful one. It actually cost us probably a whole year on our program timeline. We could have been where we're at now, last year. So first, it's really expensive, rocket hardware, as you all know. And second, it's just fun to build stuff. So one of my earliest examples of this was trying to cut costs and all of that, right? For our first engine test cell, we needed a DAC, and we're we don't want to drop 30 grand on an NI system, and then another 30 on cards and all of that. We're gonna go with LabJack, which, no offense, I'm sure many of you are using that. Oh, that was a really bad idea. And that we lost a lot of time, and time is money. So that was a major mistake, and that really reprogrammed my mind. It's look, if we're serious about building a rocket company, there are certain things we have to invest in, and we have to do it right, and focus not on kind of the enablement side. Let people who've already figured that out do that thing, and we focus on the engineering of the rockets and do that. Another really good example is this was a top-down thing for me. I'm we have to build all our PCBs in-house because that's the way we vertically integrate everything, and that's the way to do it. And we were building PCBs to control servos and stuff, and it was just a total nightmare because it adds months to your timeline, and you don't need to do it. You just go online and you buy this thing, even from in some cases from Amazon. These are like acceptable devices. I'm not saying that that's where we get all our high performance gear from, but a lot of stuff is out there. Why build stuff when you can buy it? But again, on the student side, I think it makes total sense. Seeing custom PCBs, seeing you guys make a lot from a little, I think that's what the student experience is all about. But we really had to unlearn that. I had to unlearn that over the last year, especially after some very, very painful and very expensive and costly mistakes on that front. Oh yeah, valves, they really suck. So if there's one reason to build solids, it's less valves for sure. And it kind of comes down to the same thing, hacking away with Toys R Us valves versus calling it NordSpace versus just getting the good quality stuff, or at least medium quality stuff. It makes a big difference. So yeah, but this is not the end of our terrible experience with valves. We're proud to be sponsoring a bunch of teams here today. We also sponsor robotics, satellites, and all kinds of other things as well. IoT is really in our DNA. I wish more of our team could be here today, but they're just so busy. But we're trying to do more things, including create other competitive environments for students. The last thing, Apollo, the average age to get people to the moon, like, I mean, if they could do this, like what, I don't know, like well over 60 years ago, I guess now, like, come on, we can do this. 28 years. I think, like I said, students are going to pave the way for Canadian spaceflight, for opening everything space. You heard Zach said it as well. How many of their team members at Reaction Dynamics are from our students from Launch Canada and rocket teams? Same deal in our case. We can't do what we do without Launch Canada and without you all. And I think one of the coolest things is that they come in to a company like ours and they still believe the impossible is possible. And we try to maintain that. I try to maintain that personally as long as I possibly can. And there are some realities of working, in the professional world, but the impossible can be made possible, and I believe this. I ask this every single time as my last slide. Do we choose? This is a choice I think we consciously can make as Canadians. Are we going to be leaders? Are we going to be participants? I'm tired of being participants. I think we can lead. I know we can lead. We have a huge economy. We have amazing talent. You all go everywhere else and build other people's space programs. We can do that here. So let's lead, guys. Thank you for your time today. And congratulations and good luck with your launches.
Beautiful presentation, really. And I've had a chance to see Rahul speak a few times by now and assist him, and every time I end up being more excited than the previous one. I gotta say, congratulations and thank you. Do we have any questions from the audience? I do have one to start the ball, if that's okay. I do have one to start, if that's okay. Like I said, every time you speak, I'm flabbergasted at your speed and how you achieve things in so efficient little time and big milestones. Any recommendations to entrepreneurs out there, students that want to start engineering in hard projects in Canada, on how they can achieve hard technical milestones in so short amount of time in the regulatory environment that we have in aerospace?
Yeah, I mean, it's really mostly a cultural thing. I mean, you need somebody on the team who has that like metronome, that drum beat I was talking about. That's why it was my first lesson learned, but just the importance of time. And often it comes down to like the first person on that team, and they set the pace. And you see that in sports, you see that everywhere. You have people that set the pace, and I think it's really important to recruit leaders as well on your team. One of the things that's often done in companies is you hire CEOs, right? And not every founder is necessarily ideal to be a CEO. I don't know if I am, but I'm in this role right now. So, but one of the qualities I would look for if I was in a student team is maybe you find somebody that's not necessarily an engineer, but has a great management style, and they are able to set that pace for you and help you with project management. One of the things that helped us tremendously was a year ago we had Derek join us on the operations side. And he's also an aerospace engineer, but doesn't do any technical work. But without his input on project management and like actually taking the sheer chaos that I'm constantly funneling towards him and like distilling that down into project management plans, speaking about it in a calm way, and like that just makes a world of a difference. So it's not enough to just be able to like talk about doing things fast and like cracking a whip or something. You really need to have a plan around that. We're still learning how to do that effectively. I think we can move 10 times faster. It's just trying to avoid the mistakes, some of the ones that I talked about as well.
So find the right people. Thank you.
People are everything. Yeah, for sure. Hey, Julian.
Hello, thank you. I just have a few questions about your printed engine. In particular, what kind of heat treatment process do you guys do on your engine? And I also want to ask about the envelope of the size print that you guys have.
You talk about heat treatment?
Yes.
Okay. I can't tell you the exact profile, but we have a furnace in our facility. We run it for about 36 hours. So that thing comes out looking pretty, not pretty. I can maybe tell you a little bit more about that offline. But we've done a bunch of structural tests. We started with like 3D printing and then ran coupons inside there, done tensile tests and all kinds of other tests, figured out what the ideal situation was. So yeah, we baked the thing. And for the printer, so right now we have our first printer and currently our only printer. It's roughly about like 50 centimeters by 50 by 50. Just a little bit smaller than that. But we're looking now to get 2 new capabilities, one on a laser DED side and another which might be at the meter scale for powder bed fusion. So we haven't announced it yet, but we have something big coming on the additive manufacturing side.
Wow, thank you very much.
Yeah, sure.
Hey, Rahul. I just wanted to ask what your plans are for scaling up manufacturing capabilities so you can have that high launch cadence.
Scaling launch capabilities? Is that what you asked?
Scaling manufacturing.
Yeah, I mean, we try to use, other than 3D printing, which arguably can be called conventional in some circles now, we really try to like stick to conventional everything. So that's why conventional propellants, conventional manufacturing processes as best we can. So that just lends itself to us being able to use almost any machine shop and produce what we need in high quantities. Now our goal is definitely to do that in-house as much as we can. But if we're not using highly specialized equipment, then that means that we can leverage third parties. If we get demand for like somebody needs 100 launch vehicles like tomorrow, we can find a path to make that happen because we're not necessarily like creating our own machines and creating our own processes around that. But I think as much as we think about scaled manufacturing, it's not something that necessarily keeps us up at night. Right now, we call what we have like kind of a manufacturing lab. We're looking in the next year to quadruple the size of our facility, and that's going to be where we're actually going to be doing some more like production scale.
Awesome, thanks.
Sure.
Hi, Rahul. Just real checking in. You left off at valves suck, and that's so very true. In your experience, can you share with us valves that you'd say, don't touch, don't even bother, you're wasting your time, we've learned the hard way?
Tell you about valves that don't suck?
No, the valves that made you really say valves suck, the ones that you're saying, don't waste your time on.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's us using valves. So there's certain places in our fluid control systems where we actually can use valves that aren't like purpose built for like rockets or very advanced aerospace, and we get away with them. I think really it's a lot of the cryo valves that give us some of the challenges, and it's us trying to cut corners, like a year and a half ago, and not even cut corners, like cut expense. I mean, a single high quality valve can cost over $10,000 easily, like a single valve. So if we can get one that's 500 or 1,000 and like retrofit it for our systems, so I don't want to like necessarily dunk on valves that we use because we're kind of using them in a way that they weren't necessarily meant for, and they actually do work. Like I mean, we can make them work. There's certain areas where we're now like we've invested in higher quality valves and regulators. It's mostly our fault, I would say, so far that we've mostly my fault, I would say, for why I have that impression.
Hi, Rahul. So you had a pretty good part on making a business case for an aerospace company like this, and I kind of had 2 questions about that. So what do you think is going to give you a competitive edge over like these small budget rocket companies like Rocket Labs in the States? And what challenges do you see yourself overcoming towards a road of profitability?
Couldn't exactly hear that question. I think business case and Rocket Lab.
Yeah. So what do you think is going to give yourself a competitive edge over budget aerospace companies like Rocket Labs? And then what challenges do you see yourself overcoming towards the road to profitability?
I mean, honestly, I think it's going to be really hard to compete against a company like Rocket Lab, especially out of the gate. Like they're a fantastic company. A lot of what we do is model after them. Our market research indicates that there's going to be quite a lot of demand for access to space, for getting assets to space, it's only increasing. So our initial target market would be serving Canadian needs. We think we could probably do, anywhere from like 5 to 10 dedicated launches just to serve the Canadian market first, and then scale that up depending on which direction we need to head to, whether it's building launch capabilities like I aspire to in my presentation for other countries, or just offering another solution. I mean, other than SpaceX and Rocket Lab, there really aren't that many, I guess, friendly nations that are regularly launching right now. So whether it's on the spaceport side, launch vehicle side, or anything else there, it's a bottleneck. I think there's a couple of really good companies that are up and coming, way further ahead than us. The last couple of years have kind of filtered through some of the other companies that weren't going to make it, which I think it's nice. It's left like kind of a new field for us to operate in. But it's going to be tough. Like, I don't think we're ever going to plan to go head to head with Rocket Lab and that be our business case right out of the gate. They're a fantastic company.
Thank you, Rahul. As the original investor in your company that you put your own money into, what discipline, if there's one, would you say that when you wake up every day about putting your own money, your family on the line to do this, what's one discipline that you could share with the audience when it comes to an entrepreneurial mindset? Like, what's that one discipline that's a guiding principle for you that lets you be the leader that stands up here and say, we can do it, have a can-do attitude? So the question is, what's your most important principle as an entrepreneur when you put your own capital in?
Well, I mean, in my case, it's something I sort of committed myself to so long ago. And you know what? I'm the kind of guy, like, when I make a promise, I do everything I possibly can to keep it, especially if I make a promise to myself. So I think that fundamentally is really important. Initially, it was, I talked about finding your why. Like, for most of my life, it's like I wanted to build a space company because it's just so cool. And then it became apparent to me, after undergrad and after building another company, becoming a taxpayer and all of this, that like this is really there's so much more to it. National security is definitely one thing that's topical today, but I hate seeing our jobs like disappear. I hate seeing our tax dollars disappear. I hate seeing our IP disappear. And I want to raise the standard even for aerospace engineers in Canada in terms of their compensation, in terms of everything else. So that drives me a lot these days. Space is like maybe 25% of it, and that's a really critical part of it. But I'm so committed to seeing Canada industrialize, and I think we have this unique positioning in the space side that we can focus on and make happen. But hey, it's definitely a pretty scary situation. But I came from nothing, so I almost feel like I don't have anything to lose. I have a house and I have a car. That I'm not going to put those on the line, but everything else I'm ready to dedicate to Canada. Yeah.
What a great way to finish this question period. Talking about, can you hear me well? Yes. So one thing personally that affects me is seeing some of my smartest colleagues finish their degree. They were raised in Canada. They got educated in Canada. Then they go to the US to work. And everybody makes their choices. But thank you for providing the opportunity to keep our students here. So everybody, one more round of applause for NordSpace and Rahul Goel.